Hello, I'm Nigel Griffiths. I work at IBM in the UK. Welcome to part 3 of this series and a hands-on with disks for PowerVS running a small AIX virtual machine for £2 a day or $3 or €3. Part 1 was getting you started and checking the prices were actually right. Part 2 was doing the first VM live and getting it on the internet. Now we're looking at disks. In the first two videos, we created the smallest possible copy of AIX to keep the price down for people who just wanted to give AIX a try, perhaps learn some new features and practice their systems administration skills. Now, there is an alternative to the Tier 3 storage, and we're going to look at that now. So what is the difference between this Tier 1 and Tier 3? Well, I looked up the publicly available information. For Tier 1 is based on an IBM Flash System 9000, which is pretty much our top gun disk subsystem for performance and function. But Tier 3 is sitting on the same set of disks, so it's not that. The buzzword for Tier 1 is it's fast. It's best for high disk I/O workloads like relational databases or databases of any sort, any workload that has to commit things to the disk or read things off a disk as fast as possible. This is what you want, Tier 1. Tier 3 is low cost. It's good for tasks that are non-IO work bound. So if you have an application that hammers your network and hammers your CPU but doesn't do an awful lot of IO, you go for the lower cost option. We look at these ratings that the Tier 1 is rated at 10 IOPS per second. That's tiny. You can't run any workloads that, but it also has per gigabyte. So the more data you have, then the faster you can access your data. So I'll give you an example of 1 terabyte, then that's 10,000 IOPS per second, and that's a high number. So that's really good. If we look at the Tier 3 numbers, it's 3 instead of 10. So you get, for 1 terabyte of data, you get roughly 3,000 IOPS per second. And if you try to go faster than that, the application is demanding it, then latency will increase with the Tier 3 disks. So the Tier 1 disks are recommended by the PowerVS team for all production workloads. Well, yes, they would. Best disk for your most important workloads. For non-production workloads, or for example, learning AIX systems administration, then you can go for the lower cost Tier 3 options. Now, you can't really make up your mind which to use unless you know, well, how much do they actually cost? So here are the costs for the two different tiers. Got to be careful with prices and costs, and there's a few caveats in here. So we got the prices may change, may go up, may go down. These are the prices from November 2023. They're the prices on the website where you purchase your extra disk space, and if you buy in bulk, typical of cloud, discounts may apply, and some of those can be quite large. The Tier 1 prices in green are the high performance disks. This is the cost of 1 terabyte of disk space roughly. I've got the prices in US dollars and the Great British pounds for the same thing. And so let's look at the price is 25 pence per hour or £6 per day, and compare that with the Tier 3. That's 13 pence per hour or £3 12 pence per day. So roughly speaking, if you want some sort of way of remembering this, the Tier 1 disks are 3 times, actually 3.3 times the performance for twice the price, actually slightly less than twice the price at the moment. So this will give you an idea of how much you want extra you need to pay to get your ultra fast disks, and you can decide for yourself whether you need those for your particular workload. Right, back to the hands-on with the disks. So here's the virtual machine we created yesterday. PowerVS told us that there's a 2 gig drive. If we look down in here, we can see LSPV. It's got the rootvg in it, and there's just the one disk, as we'd expect. And if we look inside the rootvg, we can see in here that it is 20 gigabytes in size, which is pretty small. You can buy a USB memory key for $5 with that much disk space in it. We're rapidly going to run out of room, even if we just wanted to upgrade AIX with a service pack, for example. That just wouldn't do. We actually have 7 gigabytes not used at the moment, so we can grow a few file systems. So here we are back to IBM Cloud, and we actually got some information down here. I have 2 resources in here, which are my virtual machines. Nope, here's my 2 services in here. This is Texas. If we wanted to get back to here directly, don't forget up here, resource list. I'm going to go back to Texas. I know that's where my virtual machine from yesterday is. Okay, so here it is, part 2. We're running the part 3 demo now. In here, what can we actually do? Shut it down, restart it. Nope, none of that. So let's dive into this and get the details of this particular virtual server instance or VM. Down in here we can see we've got one disk attached to it, and we can't actually highlight that. We can't detach it, for example, over here. Well, it's the bootable disk and this one is running, so it's not going to let you do that. Okay, so once we know this number in here, part 2 is easy to remember, boot 0, because it's the only disk we've got. And if we go up in here to storage volumes, we can see our volumes. This will be all of them that are available. And here is the one we actually are interested in here. And again, we can't click on this and we can't throw it away because it's actually in use. But we can, it took me a while to notice this, we can hover in here. This is not grayed out. We can edit this disk. Okay. And yes, tier 3, bootable 20 gigabytes. We didn't select that. That's forced on us because that's the size of the image with AIX running in it. If we click down in here, oh, we can any size we want. And scroll down, we can make it 2 terabytes. And it says it's going to cost us $200 a month. Well, that's too rich for me. Let's go back up here and we'll go for 50 gig. And that's going to cost us $3 a month for 50 gig. So we'll save that operation. Okay. And it's successful. That's good. Now we go back to my LPAR in here and see what it says. VG, rootvg. And it says it's 20 gigabytes. So we have to give AIX a clue to actually go and have a look at its disks and refresh its idea of what's going on. And that's the old famous config manager command. Go back and look at the size of the disk and it hasn't changed. So let's change the change volume group minus G rootvg. And it's saying we're not quite the right size, but we've now got to 51 gigabytes. Well, there's a bit of rounding down. That's good. That's what we wanted. Now we can increase the size of the AIX file systems to take up that new space. All this course we've done live. Let's clear the screen. Let's grow /home to 10 gigabytes. There we are, so the root file system's a gig, the home is 10 gig and temp is 1 gig. Now let's add some disks to our virtual machine in PowerVC. Double check it's the right virtual machine. If we slide down a little bit, we can see the attached volumes. Well, there's just the one disk, the one we changed to 50 gig, it's bootable, so as expected. Over here we can see create volume, let's go for that. So let's call these, and let's make them, keep them fairly small, 40 gig, but let's do 3 of them. $12 a month. So that's worked. We'll do a quick refresh of the screen. There we go. We'll slide up and we can see the 3 new disks. We put the numbers 1, 2 and 3 at the end, 40 gigabytes each. Now we'll go back to AIX and get those online. Config manager, I think that's the right command this time. And there we go, 3 extra disks. Gonna go good old Smitty, LVM. Volume group, yep, and a volume group, an original one. Detaching names, it's control 4. Then you do a escape 7 to mark them up, and that's going to do it. Okay, come out and have a new volume group, and it has 3 Detaching disks in it, and we'll create a file system. Switchy JFS2 and enhance file system. Yep, to Detaching. They're 40 gigs each, aren't they? So, and 3 of them. Let's make the units gigabytes. We'll make it 100 gigabytes. /scratch, and we'll mount it. -M, and scratch isn't there because it hasn't mounted it yet, so we'll just mount that now. There it is, say 100 gigabytes. Really quick, isn't it? Now, if I go in here and unmount the file system, then export the volume group so that I've no longer got any interest in the volume group, and then delete the devices, I can go back to PowerVS and remove those disks from this virtual machine and add them to another virtual machine. Here we are, back to where we were before, and we can actually do a detach operation here. And it gives you a quick warning that you'll still be charged for detached volumes. You have to delete them if you want to avoid charges. Well, successfully detached. Left it a few minutes and coming back to look at our partition 2, and we can see down in here there's just the one disk here. We go back up to our storage volumes, we can see the 3 disks. Now, while you weren't watching the video, for a split second there, I deleted those 3 disks that we were using in the previous exercise. Now we're just going to create a new disk that's not connected to a virtual machine. So we're in the storage volumes in here, and obviously create volume up here. I'm going to use this as a master repository. You'll notice in here that I could put this into a different tier. We're going to use tier 3, and I want it to be fairly big, let's say 100 gig, quantity 1, that'll do fine, and we'll just create that. So this is an independent disk, it's not actually connected to any of their virtual machines or virtual server instances. Okay, so it's done the create there, and here it is. That was nice and quick, wasn't it? Just a bit of this space is there, not particularly a hard deal, is it? Now I actually want to attach that to a particular virtual machine so that I can save some data to it and then unattach it. So how do I do that? Well, first of all, note up in here that if I wanted to delete something that's not attached to a virtual machine, this little button is here, it says delete. So I click on there, it says, are you really sure about this? Because you can never undo this operation. So we won't do that now. But now you know where to do that. So let's attach the repository to my disk test 2 virtual machine. So we'll go to my virtual servers and we'll drill into the details by clicking on its name. It's actually currently running, and here we have the attached volume. So we'll click on here and it'll say what disks have you got that are not attached. Well, this is one that's already connected. There's only one that's not attached to something else, and we just say attached volume, and it's done. Then we can start accessing that volume. Later on, as we've done before, we'll use config manager to get it online and then import the volume group. Then we'll map the file systems and we can access the files or do backups into the file system. Oop, we haven't actually got the extra disk here yet, so let's do a quick refresh of the screen. So there's the master repo. When we're finished with the master repository, we could then detach it and use it somewhere else, as we've seen before. Well, that's it for part 3, hands-on with disks. In part 4, we'll be looking at the open source toolbox, which has already been connected to our virtual servers. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed this or learned something, please give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe.